Well, first off, for entertainment reviews, I want to talk about a documentary series that I started watching. It's a food show. If you don't know, I love food shows. Do you love food shows? A lot of people do these days. They're quite popular. Netflix is releasing a lot. They've done some that I've recommended here before, like Chef's Table last year. There's just a lot of good cooking shows and food shows and travel shows. That's the thing I like the most. I'm not so into cooking shows, although I do like cooking shows. But I really like travel shows where they go around and show you different cultures and show you different food from different cultures. Anthony Bourdain is someone that I talked about a lot on this podcast before he died last year. I posted a lot of things about him because I liked his work a lot, and I liked the fact that he would go around to different cultures and he would try out different fancy restaurants, expensive restaurants, but he would also try a lot of street food, and he loved the small, what we call mom and pop shops. Mom and pop shop means not a chain restaurant, not famous, not touristy, just a family, usually a family, a mom. We call it mom and pop because it's like just a married couple or some family. They start this little restaurant, sometimes on the street, just street food, and it's, those are the best places. If you've ever traveled, usually when you travel, you try to go to some really fancy places, some nice places. You want to eat at the popular tourist places, but if you can, it's nice to try some local places, especially street food, things that, of course you want to make sure it's safe and it's clean and it's something that the locals recommend. But there's a lot of good food out there on the streets in the world, and that's what this show is about. It's a documentary series on Netflix. It's called Street Food. So naturally, it's about street food, food on the street, okay? And I'm guessing they're going to have more seasons. This first season focuses on Asia, because Asia is well known, as you know, because you're Korean. If you're listening to this in Korea, you know that Asia is well known for street food. Every country in Asia has a lot of street food. Okay, Korea is one. We have a lot of great food in Korea on the street. You got tteokbokki, you've got odeng, you've got sundae, you've got lots of different food. Hotteok, I love that one. Hotteok in the wintertime. It's great. There's so many good things on street food carts around Korea. And South Korea actually is one of the episodes on this show. They focus on South Korea for one episode. There's an episode in Thailand, in Japan, in Vietnam, India. Okay, lots of different places in Asia. They go around and they show you the different street food. Okay, that's nice if you like food, if you like cultures, that's cool. The other thing about this show that's very interesting and very unique and makes it nice is that they take one or two families and they focus on them and their story. Like they'll take a married couple, who started this business or their food truck or their street food place. They started it years ago. They tell the story, how they got started making the food, how they learned how to cook it, how they, struggled with the business or with their family or, things like that. It's really interesting because you get to know just a couple people who are behind the street food. And as you know, there are, thousands and thousands, millions probably in Asia, people who are making their living on selling food on the street. And we just pass them every day when we walk by them. You don't think about the fact that they have a story to their life, that their life has some story behind it, and everybody does, obviously, but we don't think about that. And it's nice once in a while to be reminded that everybody you meet every day, the people that you encounter, when you're buying food on the street or at the store, everybody has a story. Everybody has a life and a past and a future, and it's nice to be reminded of that, and that's why I really like this show. It's called Street Food. Here's the trailer.
If someone has to taste a real food, authentic food, it has to be street food.
There's a culture of eating outside, drinking outside, hanging out outside.
Always like a party going on.
It's a chaotic paradise of food.
It's a portal to a world of culinary heritage. People have been doing that same dish for 40, 50, 60 years. They never went to culinary school.
แม่จะอายุมากแม่จะบอกเด็กเสมอนะเด็กมันจะขี้ลืมร่างกายเด็กยังสู้แม่ไม่ได้เลย
In the city of 10 million people, almost 1 million make a living by selling on the street. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of sacrifice.
किराए के लिए भी पैसे नहीं थे। कभी कभार ऐसे हालात होते हैं जब घर में रोटी भी नहीं थी। मुझे आगे ही बढ़ना था।
항상 몇 번이라도 포기하고 싶었지만 제가 포기할 수 없는 이유가 단 한 가지 있었어요. 우리 가족을 지키자.
Street food is what brings us together. It's where we find a common place. Now it's our time to celebrate it and share it with the rest of the world.
And for music this week, I posted a new song from a new album from an artist called Joy Williams. Joy Williams is from Nashville, my hometown, Nashville, Tennessee. And she has that Nashville sound, very, very strong Nashville sound. And if you don't know what that Nashville sound is, well, you're about to hear it on this song. This song is called Front Porch. And even the title, Front Porch, that's such a Tennessee thing. You know, down south in America, people, you know, they have these big country homes with big front porch, and they have a swing on the front porch, and you know, you sit out there, you have lemonade, and you might have seen it in the movies. It's a very southern thing. You go up north, you know, in Michigan. You know, I grew up in Michigan. My family now lives in Nashville. That's why I say it's my hometown. But in Michigan, when I grew up there, you know, people don't sit out on the front porch. A lot of houses don't even have a front porch. You know, our family did, and we never even used it. But when you go down south, the weather's usually warmer down there, and people go out there and sit on the front porch and talk and, you know, just enjoy the nice sunny weather. That's kind of a southern thing. And so this song, it's called Front Porch, and it is, the words are beautiful. It's about coming home. It's about the fact that you can always come home, even if you leave, you go away and you try to experience other things on your own. You know, maybe you make a lot of mistakes, but you can always come back home. That's the message of this song. And she uses the front porch as like a symbol of that, because that kind of down south in America, that kind of family, big southern family, you know, it's almost like mom standing on the front porch saying, you know, come back. You can always come back here. You can always come to mom's house, you know. And Koreans probably can relate to that too, for the most part. You know, if you go and you go out and you have your own life, you know, but you can always go back to mom's house, and she's going to make you some kimchi jjigae, you know, and make you some nice banchan and food. That's kind of what this song is represented, that feeling, that mood of like mom and dad, they're always there for you. You can always come back home. That kind of thing. It's a beautiful song, and she's got a new album out. I'm excited about it. It's a nice album. It's got a very, very Tennessee, Nashville kind of sound, which I love because I'm from there. So let's listen to it. This is Front Porch by Joy Williams.
There are no wrong roads, and no window stays closed, and love is always sad when it fades, but glass is better stained anyways. If never you find what you're looking for, come on back to the front porch. Say my name through the screen door. Come on back to the front porch. Whatever you've done, it doesn't matter, 'cause darling, we're all a little splintered and battered, but the light is on. What you waiting for? looking for the shortcut to find out that this place was made of the best stuff. If never you find what you're looking for, come on back to the front porch. See my name through the screen door. Oh, come on back to the front porch. Whatever you've done, it doesn't matter. 'Cause darling, we're all a little splintered and battered, but the light is on. Oh, what you waiting for? Come on back, come on back, oh, come on back, come on back to the front porch.
All right, well, now it's time for news slices, so let's talk about some news.
And when people come, you brag about the things you've done. All your empires conquered, your chosen altars, among many are still one. I sure don't want you back.
Well, have you ever had a hard time pronouncing L and R? L and R are very confusing letters for Koreans, and not just you. Don't worry, if you think it's just Koreans, it's not. Asia in general, Asians are known to have a hard time pronouncing L and R. And so I had this video that I posted this week on the blog about this. It's not really news related, but it is English related, and it is instructing and a little bit, it's helpful in that it is teaching you why. It's not really teaching you how to pronounce L and R. I have a video about that. If you want to go to my YouTube channel, I made a video about the difference between L pronunciation and R pronunciation. But this video is more explaining why Asians have a hard time. And they go through each country, like Japanese people, Chinese people, and Korean people, why each language, you kind of have your own, like it talks about in this video, the liam you have in Korean, that is kind of an L sound, sometimes kind of an R sound. It's kind of, it has different uses. And same thing with L and R. There are more than just what we think of as the L and the R sound. This video, I like how they explain the fact that there's different kinds of L sounds, for example. Like there's something they call the dark L, which I thought was very interesting because we don't really think about that. Even me as an English teacher, when I teach people, I never really thought about that. There are other kinds of ways to pronounce L depending on the word. And so that's why it's difficult for some words, more difficult than other words. And so it's a little bit intimidating, maybe a little bit discouraging to watch this video or listen to this, because you're going to say, what? Well, how in the world can I ever pronounce these letters? Because they don't actually teach you in this video how to do it. They just talk about why it's difficult. Okay, well, you already knew it was difficult, but it might be interesting to find out why. So we're going to listen to this. But if you really want to, as I've said many times before, if you want to improve your pronunciation, the main thing is listening practice. Lots and lots of listening practice. You don't need to practice pronunciation that much, okay? What you need to do is just listen. Listen, listen, listen. That's how children do it. That's how babies do it, okay? If you listen to hours and hours of native English speakers, you're going to start pronouncing the words because your brain, the muscle memory of your brain is going to remember, and your mouth is just going to start forming those letters and words properly. They talk in this video about children. Children generally, L and R, it's one of the last letters that children can actually pronounce well, which is true. Even my daughter, she says Boyd. She doesn't say bird. She says Boyd. I like Boyd. Okay, why? So children, they learn L and R. They finally get to pronounce it right. It's, in the video, they say around 5 years old, I think. So it takes about 5 years for them of listening, practicing to be able to pronounce L and R correctly. And that's native speakers we're talking about. Okay, so it's not easy. That's the point of this video. And my point is, if you want to improve, you need to do a lot of listening. Lots and lots, hours and hours of listening practice. That will help your pronunciation. So what does that mean? That means you get to watch more Netflix. Yay! Just watch TV. It will help, I promise. Listen to more podcasts in English. It will help. Okay, that's why I recommend all of these TV shows, movies, music, podcasts, things like that, because it helps you. The more you listen, the better your speaking gets, the better your listening gets, and the better your pronunciation will get. Okay, I promise you, you don't have to think about it too much. Okay, it's just natural. It comes from listening. So let's listen to this video. It's a little bit complicated, but it is very interesting.
There's a saying in Hong Kong kung fu movies. It means only speed is unbreakable. That's in Cantonese, a language with tones, which English speakers have trouble distinguishing. So when an American says that phrase with the wrong tones, you get a Cantonese meme.
It became kind of a joke that people will send to each other. It's like, oh, this badass Wi-Fi is so good. It's quite funny.
If English is your first language, though, you might be more familiar with a different joke.
Supplies!
That's the notion that East Asians mix up their R's and L's in English.
Hello, please.
It's a running gag in Lost in Translation, an Oscar-winning film about two Americans who are sad in Japan.
Rat pack, you know rat pack? Rat pack.
The movie makes communication with the locals seem hopeless.
Lick my stocking.
Hey, lick them.
And at one point, Scarlett Johansson's character asks,
why do they switch the R's and the L's here?
For yucks.
This movie might be a bit rude, but it's not a terrible question to ask, because if you're genuinely curious, a foreign accent gives us a chance to learn something about another language. So this trope has been applied to Japanese, Korean, and Chinese speakers. But all of these languages deal with R's and L's in different ways. First, though, we need to talk about the R sound in English. It turns out there isn't just one way to pronounce it.
Oh, it's incredibly varied.
Eleanor Lawson uses ultrasound to study English phonetics.
Have chilled R's, which are a sort of a R sound. You can probably hear my tapped R, so I do a R sound. Varied. You can have a retroflex R, where your tongue essentially curls upside down under your palatal arch.
Run.
One.
She says the bunched R, which is common in North American English, is particularly complex.
Nurse.
Say the word fur. How would you tell someone where to put their tongue to make that R? The middle of the tongue rises up in the mouth while the root of the tongue is pulling backwards, and you might have some lip rounding as well. R sounds like this, where the airflow isn't blocked by the tongue or the lips, are called approximates in phonetics.
So forming all of these strictures at the same time could be very difficult for someone who's not used to producing that.
The R sound is one of the last consonants that English-speaking kids learn to say. It takes up to 5 adorable years for them to figure it out.
Poo-poo and wed.
And the L sound in English can change depending on its position in a word. Say the word ladle or level. That first L is a clear L. You can probably feel your tongue touching the top of your mouth right behind your teeth, as in lead. But the L at the end of the word is a dark L, where the tip of the tongue might not even touch the top of your mouth at all.
A dark L is where the back of the tongue is moving up towards the soft palate, and it gives it a sort of O-ish sound, so like an O.
Level. So the English R and L are complicated, but still, they seem like pretty different sounds. It might help to look at Spanish. Say the word salero.
Salero, salt shaker, salero.
This R is made with a flap of the tongue on the ridge behind the front teeth. That's not too far away from where the L is pronounced.
Salero, hora, varios, Oruga, pare.
Japanese has that R sound. It doesn't have the L in lake or the R in red.
We have rarirurero, which sounds kind of similar to both L and R.
Those are the 5 syllables in Japanese that contain the tongue flap sound.
Rarirurero.
Try saying them.
Rarirurero.
When they're converted into the Latin alphabet, they're spelled like this, with the letter R. But the Japanese R sound
La.
is actually closer to our L sound, la, than it is to the English ra.
My name is Mariko, and for all of my English-speaking friends, their intuition to say is Mariko. And then how I explain to them is I just imagine my name spelled with M-A-L-I-K-O, and then you should be fine.
When words migrate from English to Japanese, both R's and L's become Japanese R's.
Garasu, calendar, bowling, light.
There are thousands of these loan words that Japanese speakers have to relearn with ers and uls, which are 2 sounds that Japanese ears weren't tuned to distinguish in the first place. Like Japanese, Korean doesn't have the English sound. They have this letter.
It's lier.
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 Lil. Like my tongue is going straight up to the roof of my mouth. Lier.
It takes on a different sound depending on its position within the word. So when it's followed by a vowel, it has the flap sound like a Japanese R.
둘이서.
That also means it's written with the letter R when converted into Latin script.
둘이서.
But when it's at the end of a word,
제발.
or is followed by a consonant,
들리다.
it sounds more like an L sound, and it's transcribed in the Latin alphabet as L. So it's pretty unlikely that Korean speakers would say hero, since their L sound can map on to the English L. But the dark L doesn't exist in Korean. So when they're new to English, Koreans might use their own L sound in spots where we would use a dark L, near the ends of words.
As the story unfolds, someone may change the word.
There are at least 8 major Chinese languages, but we'll look at Mandarin and Cantonese. They both have a clear L sound, and it's restricted to the beginning of syllables.
Lang is like pretty.
La. Drag.
So the notion that they would switch fa-la-la into fa-ra-ra, it's just wrong, and the makers of A Christmas Story should feel bad. Like Korean, Mandarin and Cantonese don't have the dark L sound, as in pull. But when they come across an L near the end of a word in English, they tend to pronounce it more like a vowel.
100 years old, 90 years old. I said, we should respect this kind of people.
You chose the coldest possible, really.
Mandarin does have an R sound. At the beginning of a syllable, it sounds like this.
So actually maybe the R is sounds more like the S in treasure. 任性.
And at the end of a syllable,
it means sun.
Cantonese, on the other hand, doesn't have an R sound at all. So when speaking English, they sometimes use a W sound or an L sound.
We just tried very hard to prove ourselves.
Our ability to produce sounds in a new language depends in part on whether those sounds are meaningfully distinct in our first language. So a Japanese speaker hearing ul and it's a lot like an English speaker hearing tones in Chinese.
Lang, 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 lang.
Ma, 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 ma. Yeah, so I know people's mind just blown away.
We all carry the rules of our native language with us when we learn new languages.
Accent is your identity. So I don't want to sound like an American person or British person.
So if you hear a foreign accent, remember that it's a unique hybrid. It's like a lion with stripes, something you can only get if you're brave enough to venture beyond the comfort of your mother tongue.
All right, well, let's get into English time. Are you ready to study? We've been studying, but let's continue.
It's those little things that